How are we going, folks? Welcome back to the Nightmare Cabin. And yeah, it's a sad one. Needless to say, you've all heard the news by now. Ozzy Osbourne, the godfather of heavy metal, has sadly passed away yesterday. I remember my wife saying, well, her brother had texted her saying Ozzy Osbourne's dead. I was like, what? Nothing on Blabbermouth. And then just quickly Googled it. And it was just one article on Sky News. And then over the course of like 20 minutes, it just grew and grew. Um, and then I was like, I want to go on Blabbermouth just to confirm it. And then Blabbermouth, it just crashed. So that in itself was confirmation. And yeah, very sad. I mean, just weeks after that farewell concert as well, which, it was really good. I saw footage of it the next day. There's always footage of it coming up on YouTube and whatnot. And there was a video of it going around on Telegram. And it's always like taken down like the next day. But all things considered, he was really good. I mean, I think I don't know, obviously, but he looked like in a bad way for a long time. He looked in a bad way for, you know, over a decade at this point, really. I mean, the Parkinson thing was actually an open secret before he announced it. And obviously he couldn't finish his last tour. And yeah, it seemed like he just wanted to do that one last show, and he wanted to do it with the original Sabbath. I'm really glad that the original Sabbath did get to do one, small set, and that, what happened with that final reunion with Bill Wald, who knows what happened with that, and it just seemed so simple to solve, and it didn't feel right that they didn't end the four of them, and now they finally did. That box did get ticked at the end, which is great to see, and the story is now final. And to be perfectly, I thought he was going to die that night. I think this last gig was the last thing that he was holding on to. I think, and again, I began to say this a minute ago, but I can't prove it. I don't even hold it against them if they did, but I think he was pumped with steroids to do that gig. And once they wore off, that's generally what happens. You get that with cancer patients and that. They're like, oh no, I'm feeling pretty good now, and it's the steroids. And then and they can't keep you on the steroids, and then once those steroids wear off, things do drop dramatically. But yeah, I mean, I can't say it was a shock, but it was a surprise. You expect, when you're expecting something to happen, and then you kind of forget about it, and then boom, it does happen. It was one of those moments. But I mean, the term legend is thrown around a lot, but if Ozzy Osbourne wasn't one, then who is? He the just the back catalogue of music he's left behind now. Not a lot of people get to get to the top of the world with a band. Four lads from post-war Britain in a pretty run-down area as well. Birmingham was at the time, to becoming megastars organically. For him to be, for that to come crashing down, and for him to start again with a brand new band and go straight to the top again, and and then reinventing himself with the Ozfest. People don't realise how much of a game changer the Ozfest was, to the point where the Ozfest became kind of irrelevant because of all the other metal festivals that came off the back of it. But the amount of careers that were launched through Ozfest, and then reinventing himself again with the reality show. I mean, the Osbournes, again, it's so much stuff Ozzy Osbourne has done has now been taken for granted, and it's just a given. But it was a lot of stuff that stuff that he was doing. After the Osbournes, everyone had a reality show, and people go. You say he's the godfather of heavy metal, and some people go, oh well, hold on a minute. What about this person? What about that person? What about Rob Halford maybe, or Tony Iommi? So, yeah, but look, your nan doesn't know who Tony Iommi or Rob Halford are. They know who Ozzy Osbourne is. When people think of heavy metal, they think Ozzy Osbourne. And you could say, I've said it myself, Black Sabbath unknowingly invented heavy metal while Judas Priest perfected it. Yeah, but they still invented it. There still wouldn't be a Budgie or a Priest or a Maiden without Sabbath first. And there is it does, it's a day of mourning today for anyone that's into rock and metal, because people loved Ozzy, because Ozzy was just Ozzy. He was just himself. What you saw is what you got. Even with his success, he was still that guy down the road. He preferred a chip shop to a Michelin star restaurant. He never took for granted what he had and what he had achieved. He always kind of knew in the back of his head that it could all just be taken away tomorrow. And that's why he said it, every show you went to, he always said, I love you all. That the Prince of Darkness doesn't do that, And he just held that crowd in his hands the whole time because, he was authentic, he was genuine. And it's something that a lot of famous people today don't quite understand. There's never been an Ozzy Osbourne. Look at the history of music. There wasn't an Ozzy Osbourne before him, and there won't be one now. There'll be imitators. And no one sounds like Ozzy either. He's not the best singer in the world. No, he wouldn't have claimed to be either. Even in Black Sabbath, there were better singers that replaced him. Ronnie James Dio straight away, technically a better singer than Ozzy. Ian Gillan, Glenn Hughes, and Tony Martin. They were all better than Ozzy, but they weren't Ozzy. And it's funny as well. Like, no one really sounds like him either. I'm trying to think of someone who actually sounds like Ozzy Osbourne. There's plenty of imitators of Halford or of name the singer, but maybe someone like the Soul or some obscure stoner doom metal band or something may sound a little bit like him, but that's the thing. They're trying to sound like Ozzy as well. He had a real unique voice. That's even when he did that Was Not Was song, that Shake Your Head, like a lot of people don't realise that was Ozzy Osbourne, and when you hear it, knowing it, it's like, yeah, I spot it, but you instantly know Ozzy's voice, even if he did a duet with someone or sang on someone else's record, But this is where it all began for me. I've been a Black Sabbath fan since I was a baby, and when I got into buying, I bought this stereo a few years ago, and the whole vinyl craze kicked off, and this was one of the first ones I bought. There's a battered old copy in a loft somewhere, but yeah, I bought this one again a few years ago, and it looks exactly the same. I remember going through my stepdad's records, and he was playing me Led Zeppelin, and you know what? The first Jeff Beck album, which is actually surprisingly heavy, but who else was he playing? But it was definitely my dad got me my actual dad got me into the Who and Sex Pistols, but it's my stepdad that got me into Zeppelin and Sabbath, which led me really into metal. But he got me into Zeppelin first, and then I took this out and found that, and it was like, oh, that's scary music. And that's exactly what the band did. The Black Sabbath was named after a Boris Karloff film. I remember opening it up, seeing that. And yeah, I remember just putting it on. And I think the first time I did it, I put it on the wrong speed and it sounded really weird. But yeah, even today, you know, when those bells, you know, you got the rain and the bells, and then boom, boom, dun, you know, it's fucking, it's amazing. And it was like listening to a horror film, you know. And that's exactly what the band were trying to do at the time. They were like, people queue up for miles. He said you would see like a row of people going down the road in the cinema to see a scary film. They'd pay to be scared. Why don't we do? The people watch horror, scary films. Why don't people make scary music? And that's really what it was, you know. But then, you know, the Wizard, the blues masterpiece that is, with the fantastic harmonica from Ozzy. Behind the Wall of Sleep, which is really nice and atmospheric. NIB, great song. Evil Woman, brilliant. Sleeping Village as well, I love on this. You know, it brings to mind where I used to live. Well, I used to live in a village, and as you got to it, is an old church, which I go to now, and a lot of thatched cottages. So it looks like kind of like the Shire as you come up to it. And walking home from school, I had the CD, which I put onto a tape, and I would listen to that album constantly. I remember walking home from school, and as I got to Sleeping Village, I would get to my village with the sunset behind it, and it was just really, really cool. And then you got that big jam session from it. I mean, I love every note on this album, but I love every note on every Sabbath album. You know, I think we should all go through the Sabbath catalogue and Ozzy's solo catalogue for the next couple of days and just reflect on just the brilliant music that he's left behind with all the people that he collaborated with over the years. You know, and I could give you some, you know, some lesser obvious songs, like, you know, check out Solitude, especially now in this, you know, in this sort of hazy, you know, just listen to that peaceful, beautiful song. And anyone that tells you Ozzy Osbourne wasn't a good singer, play them that song and tell them to shut the fuck up. It was beautiful, so good. Some people don't even think it's Ozzy singing. Obviously, there's Planet Caravan as well, but you know, this album has a certain atmosphere on it that's just brilliant. But then you got Volume 4, which is like a perfect summer getting drunk album. You know, Supernaut, I love that song, absolutely adore that song. But Sabotage as well is an underrated album. That's probably their heaviest album. And Technical Ecstasy and Never Say Die, you know, I've got a love-hate relationship with those albums. Every so often I'll come around to it, and then another time I don't like it, and I'll go back and forth. Then the band got together again after years and did 13. I mean, again, that for what was wrong with that album, you know, the fact that Bill wasn't on it and the fact that Rick Rubin produced it, I was expecting a hell of a lot worse when I first heard it. And I do still like some songs on that album. End of the Beginning, is it? The fourth, I'm sure it's about the fourth track. That's still heavy as hell and when the keyboards kicking during the chorus. I mean, I'm sure it's called End of the Beginning. Da 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 da, ba na 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 na, da 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 da. And then yeah, it's a really cool song. Anyway, the opening track, no, the End of the Beginning is the opening track, isn't it? I can't remember, I'm gonna have to find it now. Hold up, where is it? End of the Beginning is the opening track. Zeitgeist. No, Age of Reason is the song I'm talking about. I'll have to give it another listen, actually. But, you know, we've got it now. You know. But again, you know, his solo albums as well. You know what? You've got two perfect albums with Randy Rhoads. You know, the guy discovered a talent as well. Like he in his solo stuff, he could, you know, he had an ear for a guitarist. You know, and he gave us Randy Rhoads and Jakey Lee. The two albums he did with Jakey Lee, especially the second one, The Ultimate Sin, which I think is one of the most underrated albums going. I think the first album with Zach is actually quite underrated as well. No Rest for the Wicked. Fire in the Sky, love that song. Then you got songs like Mama, I'm Coming Home. See You on the Other Side from Osmosis. That song always brings a tear to my eye. I can't bring myself to listen to it now, but that's a real beautiful song. You know, he could do rockers and he could do, you know, introspective, deep songs. And even some of his later stuff as well. I really like Scream. I really like. There's some hidden gems on Black Rain actually as well. So yeah, I'm gonna start listening because I did do a Black Sabbath retrospective a couple of years ago. I did part 1 and part 2. So I did part 1, which was the Ozzy albums, and I did part 2 with all the Ozzy less albums. So I'll put part 1 in the description and go and have a watch of that if you haven't seen it. And then what I always intended to do but never got round to do, I'm gonna do it now. This has lit a fire under me. I'm gonna do a Ozzy Osbourne retrospective in the next week, couple of weeks, and I'm gonna do a Ronnie James Dio one as well of the solo stuff for both of those. And yeah, just yeah, I would just say just spend the next couple of days just listening to these amazing albums and rewatch the Osbournes and watch the live albums, and you know, just the story's over now. It's finished. So now just enjoy what's been left behind. And you know, I've saw someone as well say like they're worried about Sharon. I think Sharon's going to be fine. She's, you know, she's spent a lot of time. You know, this has been a last difficult couple of years for her with his care and whatnot. Difficult couple of decades if you think about it. You know, she's looked after him from day one. But you know, she's got her grandchildren now. She's got Kelly Osbourne just announced she got engaged at that farewell show. So that weddings, you know, she's got that to look forward to. There's going to be a plethora, I think, of unreleased material now. We're at least going to get an album's worth of unused songs. Hopefully, there's always been rumours of this Randy Rhoads era concert. Multi-cameras, fully edited. Like that. There's apparently a proper filmed concert with Randy that apparently they've been sitting on for years. So hopefully that will come out now. But yeah, you know, look, Sharon, I know she divides the room. She gets a lot of bad press, but look, she's a human. And she's going through, you know, the worst of times now. So have a bit of fucking empathy and a bit of humanity, for fuck's sake. If you love Ozzy, but you can't stand Sharon, well, guess what? You should be thanking Sharon, because if it wasn't for Sharon Osbourne, Ozzy would have died in 1979. So, you know, just remember that. But yeah, I'll leave it at that for now. Check out the Sabbath retrospective, and an Ozzy Osbourne one's coming soon. And yeah, it's sad. It's really sad, but we celebrate what we had and what we have. And God bless Ozzy Osbourne.